In this podcast episode, Professor Andrew Huberman is joined by Dr. Paul Conti to discuss the topic of healthy relationships. They explore how to define and achieve healthy relationships in various contexts, including romantic relationships, friendships, and relationships with oneself and family members. The discussion is based on the framework of the psychology of self and mental health that was established in the previous episodes of the series. The concept of a healthy person is described as someone who embodies agency and gratitude as verbs. Agency refers to taking control of one's life and making positive changes, while gratitude involves appreciating and being thankful for what one has. Dr. Conti emphasizes the importance of understanding oneself and examining the structure and functions of the self. This includes exploring the unconscious and conscious mind, defense mechanisms, character structure, and self. By gaining insight into these aspects of oneself, individuals can work towards empowerment and humility, which are essential for building healthy relationships. The discussion then moves on to the concept of compatibility in relationships. While traditional factors such as shared interests and backgrounds are often considered important, Dr. Conti argues that they are not the most crucial aspects. Instead, he suggests focusing on the generative drive, which is the desire to create and grow. When two individuals have a strong generative drive, they can find common ground and support each other's growth, even if they have different interests or backgrounds. Dr. Conti also challenges the idea of seeking sameness in relationships. He explains that diversity and difference can actually be beneficial, as they allow for learning and growth. Rather than looking for someone who is exactly like oneself, he suggests finding someone who shares a strong generative drive and is open to exploring new things. The discussion highlights the importance of agency and gratitude in relationships. By bringing one's best self to a relationship and being open-minded and curious about the other person's interests, individuals can foster healthy connections. Dr. Conti emphasizes that healthy relationships are not about perfection or constant happiness, but rather about being aware, engaged, and willing to work towards improvement. The episode continues with the idea that healthy relationships contribute to overall well-being and longevity. When individuals are interconnected and continue to learn and grow, they are more likely to live longer and healthier lives. Dr. Conti emphasizes that generative drive is closely tied to agency and gratitude. Agency refers to the ability to take action and make decisions, while gratitude involves appreciating and acknowledging the positive aspects of life. These two factors play a crucial role in driving our actions and shaping our relationships. He explains that when both individuals in a relationship have a high generative drive, they are more likely to have a strong sense of agency and gratitude. This leads to better communication, understanding, and a willingness to work on themselves and the relationship. They are able to recognize and address their own limitations and support each other in their personal growth. Dr. Conti provides examples to illustrate how generative drive can impact different aspects of a relationship. For instance, he discusses the case of mismatched sex drives, where one person has a higher drive than the other. He explains that if both individuals have a high generative drive, they can have open and honest conversations about their needs and desires. They can work together to find a compromise that satisfies both partners and strengthens their bond. He also highlights the importance of giving without expecting anything in return. When individuals in a relationship give freely and without conditions, it fosters a sense of abundance and strengthens the generative drive. This creates a positive cycle where both partners feel empowered and motivated to contribute to the relationship. Dr. Conti acknowledges that relationships can face challenges when there is a lack of compatibility in generative drives. For example, if one person has a high proactiveness drive and the other does not, it can lead to frustration and imbalance. However, he emphasizes that by working on themselves and their generative drives, individuals can find ways to bridge the gap and create a healthier relationship. He also discusses the importance of self-reflection and exploring the underlying factors that may be influencing one's generative drive. This can involve examining past experiences, traumas, or societal influences that may have shaped one's beliefs and behaviors. By understanding these factors, individuals can work towards overcoming barriers and developing a stronger generative drive. Dr. Conti continues by explaining that healthy relationships are not compromises between two individuals, but rather the merging of two independent maps that represent the relationship. He acknowledges that while some individuals may have very healthy maps, there is always room for improvement and personal growth. He then delves into the topic of common pairings in the clinical setting that often lead to negative outcomes. He believes it is important to discuss these pairings in order to help people recognize and avoid them. One common pairing he highlights is the repetition compulsion, where individuals find themselves in the same unhealthy relationship over and over again. Dr. Conti explains that this pattern occurs because trauma impacts the limbic system, creating strong negative emotions that stay with a person regardless of time. As a result, individuals may seek out similar relationships in an attempt to make things right and find healing. However, he emphasizes that with self-awareness and understanding, individuals can break this pattern and find healthier relationships. Another common pairing Dr. Conti discusses is the dynamic between narcissistic individuals and those who are more submissive or dependent. He explains that narcissistic individuals are often exploitative and seek out vulnerable individuals who are less likely to leave the relationship. This dynamic can be extremely harmful and can lead to the demoralization of the submissive individual. Dr. Conti emphasizes the need for accountability and support systems to help individuals in these situations. The discussion then shifts to the topic of isolation and its impact on unhealthy relationships. Dr. Conti explains that isolation is often used as a tool by the oppressor to maintain control over the victim. By isolating the victim from friends, family, and support systems, the oppressor can manipulate and control the victim more easily. Dr. Conti emphasizes the importance of community support systems in helping individuals escape from abusive situations. The conversation then expands to include non-romantic relationships, such as those in the workplace. Dr. Conti acknowledges that unhealthy dynamics can occur in various settings, such as academic laboratories, law firms, and families. He emphasizes the need for accountability and reasonable control in these settings to prevent oppression and exploitation. Dr. Conti also discusses the destructive nature of envy and how it can lead to harmful behaviors and a lack of happiness. Dr. Conti highlights the importance of give and take in relationships as a sign of health. He explains that while there are always transactions in relationships, it does not mean that the relationship is purely transactional. He gives examples of transactions such as sharing household chores or responsibilities, but emphasizes that there is something greater at play in healthy relationships. He describes this as the generative drive, where both individuals in the relationship are creating something better together than they could on their own. This generative drive fosters a sense of interconnectedness and strengthens the relationship. The podcast also delves into the concept of power dynamics being covert rather than overt. Dr. Conti explains that there are often unstated power dynamics at play in relationships, where issues are not directly addressed due to fear of retribution or other consequences. He gives examples such as the issue of the non-issue, where there is an underlying issue between two people that is not openly acknowledged or discussed. These covert power dynamics can have a significant impact on the health of the relationship. Dr. Conti emphasizes the importance of self-reflection and introspection in understanding power dynamics and the health of a relationship. He encourages individuals to ask themselves what is really going on between them and their partner, and to be honest with themselves about any imbalances or unhealthy dynamics. He suggests looking for evidence of give and take in the relationship, as this is a good sign of health. He also highlights the significance of periods of imbalance, where one person may be giving more due to difficult circumstances, but ultimately strengthening the relationship through generosity and support. The podcast also explores the role of anxiety in relationships and how it can impact power dynamics. Dr. Conti acknowledges that anxiety is a natural part of being human and that everyone experiences it to some degree. He explains that high levels of anxiety can narrow cognitive focus and hinder the ability to think clearly and understand others. He encourages individuals to examine their own anxiety and understand its underlying causes, whether it be trauma, insecurity, or other factors. By addressing and understanding their own anxiety, individuals can better navigate power dynamics and improve their relationships. Dr. Conti also discusses the concept of the magic bridge of the US, which represents the shared bond and connection between two individuals in a relationship. He explains that the us is not just about the individual or the other person, but about the collective experience and impact on both individuals. He emphasizes the importance of nurturing and strengthening the us through positive experiences and shared goals. Thanks for watching on the US. Individuals if you enjoyed the video, a sense make of sure to like and subscribe, gratitude, and generativity in their relationships. Dr. Conti introduces the concept of mentalization, which is the ability to discern and understand the feelings, intentions, and states of oneself and others. He explains that mentalizing starts with self-understanding and then extends to understanding others and the relationship between the two. By mentalizing, we can gain clarity and make better decisions in our interactions with others. The podcast also explores the idea of boundaries in relationships. Dr. Conti explains that healthy boundaries start from within and are then projected outward. He gives an example of setting boundaries with a friend who is too presumptuous. By understanding one's own discomfort and communicating it to the friend, a healthy boundary can be established. The importance of self-care and self-protection is highlighted in the discussion of boundaries. Dr. Conti emphasizes that understanding oneself and setting boundaries is not about being selfish, but rather about taking care of oneself in order to have healthier relationships. By setting boundaries, we can protect ourselves from unhealthy dynamics and maintain a sense of agency and gratitude. The podcast also addresses the pitfalls of not understanding oneself and relying on unhealthy maps. Dr. Conti warns against latching onto labels or relying on external definitions of oneself. He emphasizes the importance of self-exploration and understanding in order to avoid falling into unhealthy patterns and relationships. Throughout the episode, Dr. Conti emphasizes the power of self-understanding and mentalization in building healthy relationships. He encourages listeners to engage in self-reflection and exploration in order to gain clarity and make more informed decisions in their interactions with others. The podcast concludes with a discussion of the positive potential of understanding oneself and others. By gaining insight into our own maps and internal processes, we can not only improve our individual well-being but also contribute to healthier relationships and a more positive culture.